We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. Got a busy week going on here. And I heard back from a former guest on the show. No, it's not Larry. Just fucking relax. People got wired up about Larry. I got an email from him, by the way, and
Oh,
he wants a rematch. And I go, we weren't fighting. He says, but you exposed me as a jerk. I said, I didn't expose you for shit. Anyway,
uh,
we have the good fortune of this time having Wilfredo or Will come on the show. And I know a lot of folks made a lot of great comments about the last time you were on. So when you said you were available, I said, fucking let's do it. You
I
sounded
appreciate
like you
that.
had a lot of things on your mind and
Oh,
wanted to talk about them. So here we are.
I mean, what's happened in the last week? Nothing. No, never mind. For all those seeing, I live in Georgia, and I'm wearing a purple shirt because I want to make one opening comment about the whole Biden bullshit. When they did the polls afterwards, Georgia, which was 5 points behind for Biden, it's
Yeah,
now 1 point
right.
behind Biden, and that's on the New York Times Siena polls, which are outliers. So the thing about Georgia, and these old folks don't get it, they may try to take our vote, they may fight us every inch of the way, but this state is going to turn for Biden, and I think it's going to be bigger. It's not going to be 11,000 votes this time. It's going
No.
to be quite a few. There's going to be no disputing at this time. And I
What
can see it, I can smell it.
I've had a different take on on this Joe Biden thing. I have a different perspective of it from most people. A lot of people that are creators on TikTok have gone the way, yeah, we got to get rid of Joe Biden. And they fucked around and found out because they are taking big time heat. I mean, some big creators are getting heat for not standing with Joe. They should know better and they should understand what's going on. The perspective I have of this whole thing is this: Republicans were waiting for anything to jump on Joe about his cognitivity or whether he's senile or anything. They were waiting for one thing because that's part and parcel to their business. They find something, they exploit it, they expand it, they exaggerate it, and that's all they've got because they've got no policy. So they did that. The media said, "Oh wow, this sounds like a good story. Let's whip this shit up." And then that scared Democrats and going, oh my God, we might lose. So we better get rid of Joe and make a quick reaction. And my point of this was this is all a fucking ploy by the Republican Party, like they've done many, many times. And every time a certain faction of Democrats get fucking sucked into it because they're panicky, stupid little bitches. So
Yeah, and
that's
that's
where I
yeah,
stand at this point.
no, it's a valid point, and I've seen those people, and if you don't think I've been hopping on them, it's insane. The one that really pissed me off was Adam Schiff in Colorado, who's running for the fourth district, third district in Colorado. He's calling for
California,
Biden. No, oh, Adam Schiff? No,
Adam,
no, Adam Frisch.
Adam
Frisch, the guy
Frisch.
in
Okay.
Colorado. Yeah, he lost to Boebert by 50 votes. First time now he's running again. So he's calling for. He had an interview on MSNBC. Tara Setmeyer is next to him. Tara Setmeyer is a hardcore Republican operative. She's Lincoln Project. She's totally anti-Trump. Lincoln Project came up with an ad which scared the piss out of me. If you haven't seen it, we'll talk about it in a minute. But he said that we should get rid of Biden. It should be. This is his quote. It should be easy. We just come up with this little primary thing, and then everyone can vote again, and we can do it. And Setmeyer's going, this system doesn't work like that. And then she lays it all out. Where's the money coming from? How the state's going to pay for it? What are you going to do with the votes? The money is tied to Biden and Harris. They might give it to Harris, but she guaranteed that some Republicans going to sue against it.
Right.
It's a mess. And I made a TikTok that got like 10 views because they suppressed the fuck out of it. Was the difference between a European, because he said his comment was just like the French and the British did. We are a different system. We did not, our forefathers did not set up a parliamentary system because they did not want parties. They got
Right.
parties,
Right.
but they didn't want like the little factions that they knew would like happens in England. They didn't want that. So they came up with this, let's be on it. Our system is fucking convoluted. It's extremely
Absolutely.
convoluted, and they came up with it because they were hoping to not have parties, partisan politics, which is the nature of people. You could be a church group and there's partisan politics within the church. And I'm not talking about Democrat or Republican. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
get in a group of people today, they do it. But we don't the British and the French do not vote for their leader. The voters do not vote for the prime minister. The French do not vote for the president. They vote for the party. The party selects their leader who becomes the prime minister or president. Think House of Representatives. That's the only thing they left in the House of Representatives. And then why can they do a snap election? Because that's national elections.
Yeah.
It's a totally different cat. The state, the federal, their federal governments pay for it. We have state elections. Each state is given a responsibility for their elections. And do you think states want to spend more money?
No.
No, it's an ignorant, stupid take that these people are looking for to make themselves feel better for reasons I haven't fucking figured out yet.
And that's the difference. You're pointing this out, and I was just thinking about this. Okay, so in Britain, they vote for the Labor Party or whatever, and the Labor Party as a whole goes in. But very often, we can be in a situation where we have a liberal or Democratic president, but a Republican Congress. So
Exactly.
that's why nothing gets fucking done.
Exactly. The one thing our founding fathers didn't want to happen happened. And also, the thing about it, the only people that vote for the prime minister in England were the ones who put him in his office in his district.
Okay.
That's the only direct ones because then he was selected as leader, and now he's responsible for the whole country. Yeah, that's our problem because our system is convoluted. They designed it that way, thinking, well, there was some rich stuff in there, and I'm going to forgive them for that. But it was just convoluted because they wanted to protect us from what they thought saw in England, but they didn't get it, unfortunately.
Well, and part of our governmental system has been perverted and polluted over the years. I
Yes,
mean, things like the filibuster and all these little rules that have been put in so people don't have to take a loss or make excuses for it. I mean, everything that's in our governmental system causes it to take longer to get anything done. It's got to come out of committee,
right.
it's got to go to the House, it's got to go to the Senate, and if you don't get enough in the Senate because of the filibuster, it doesn't and nothing happens. You're right. This whole thing is very convoluted and isn't
Understand?
set up to succeed.
Do you remember how the senators were chosen originally in the Constitution?
I do not. I was
The
not there.
governors, the governors selected two people. It wasn't a popular vote. It was two people selected by the governors. The House was popular vote. The governors selected two representatives for the Senate. That's what they did. That's why governors can still select senators.
I got
That
you.
it was changed with a constitutional amendment, and that was in order to because let's honestly, our forefathers, for all their genius, were rich white guys who like to keep their money, and they didn't trust the rabble rousers underneath. So the House of Representatives was supposed to be for the commoners, and the Senate was kind of their version of the House of Lords, but they changed it later on when we were voted for it. Um, but the only thing I would give our forefathers credit, they didn't give the Senate the purse; they gave the House the purse, thinking that the people would rather that would be better for those people.
Right.
These are historical things that, for all my life, I've respected government. That means I can't complain. I can complain about it and be upset about it, but I truly believed in the checks and balances systems. Um, I mean, when I was a kid, I never forgot seeing in Schoolhouse Rock, "I'm just a bill." In
Right.
3 minutes, they explained the entire system that half those fucking congressmen don't understand.
It's
I
true.
mean, they don't in 3 minutes, and that's I see that, and I respect it. I respected the checks and balances. I saw how the checks and balances worked against prejudice with the Brown versus Education, the Lemon Tree decision. All these things are supposed to protect us.
It's
It's
interesting. It's
mm,
interesting. You're talking about I'm Just a Bill and that cartoon that we
mhm,
learned a lot. I try to compare it to what's going on today, and I have a 4-year-old granddaughter. So we'll
mhm,
sit and watch cartoons, Coco Melon, for example, or some other ones that are similar to that. And some of the things they talk about in those cartoons, granted my granddaughter's young, is how to deal with the event that you poop. I mean, that's what we're fucking talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty cut and dried thing that people understand that because it's natural. Um, we're just a different society now.
But the one good thing about technology, and a lot of us can be Luddites, especially older of us. We can be look up what the word means, guys. I'm sorry, forgive me. Um, that we kind of anti-technology, and I hear a lot of you look at like retro stuff. Do you remember when? Do you remember that? When?
Yeah.
I remember trying to write a paper with microfiche in school and college, and I could pick up my phone and look up stuff on the Library of Congress right now. The problem is that the information has been jumbled in with bullshit
Yeah.
instead of looking for research. Because the one thing that I hate right now about the media was respected, although they did. When you go back to the days of Edward R. Murrow, and let's talk about the first Red Scare. What's his name? Joe McCarthy. Everyone was afraid of McCarthy. They were afraid of him. They didn't want to take
Right.
him on.
Right.
But Murrow said, "No, he took him on in a special, laid out all his bullshit, and exposed him for what he was. A liar, a fascist, and exposed him and ruined him. He did the right thing. Later on, you see every time, like the moral majority, all these people that have come across, the press usually push back. There was
Right.
one reporter that would come up, do the research, and said, "No, this person's full of shit." Tammy and Faye Baker, Jim Baker, whole thing was exposed as a scam. All that, but what happened is, in my mind, the movie Network by Patty Chayefsky came true,
Yeah.
where there's one line that Robert Duvall says to the Bill Holden character is that, "Why do I care about your company, your division? It loses us millions of dollars a year." And so now
Meaning
news
the
from
news
going
department. They
the
used
news
to
department,
they
yeah,
used to lose money.
they lose, but no, they didn't care because it was a public service.
Right.
That's why. But what happened is now it became corporate. As soon as Fox came into existence, and then all of a sudden they changed, and then CNN count the point counterpoint. There was editorial parts, and then there was the news and the
Right.
investigations.
Right.
But all that is gone. It's all
Yeah.
been mixed together in a big stinking stew where it's not the facts, is what you can get people to react to.
Exactly.
And that is not journalism,
No, it's not
period.
journalism. We don't have journalism in this country. Haven't had for a long time. We're old
That's
enough to.
sad.
Well, it's not only sad, it's dangerous for this country. I've said before, uh, reason we're in many of these problems, the divisiveness, for example, is that depending on who you watch in the media, you get a different story. So if you
Exactly.
watch one place and I watch one place and I tell you what about this and you say I never heard about it, whose fault is that? Well, it's the fault of the people that don't dig a little deeper, but the media could make this a more valuable situation. The pushback thing is the thing that bothers me the most. And what you're saying is absolutely right. I've said that if journalists did what journalists were supposed to do and they pushed back against Donald Trump in the very beginning in 2015, we would never have had to deal with Donald Trump. But
No.
they let him run roughshod because he was good TV and meant viewership and money to them.
Les Moonves said the same thing later on. He said, yeah, he knows Trump is a danger, but he was good for ratings. That was the head of CBS.
Right.
They
Right.
knew it. They knew what they were getting. And the problem too, I'm gonna kind of let's talk about two different separate things. 2016, Trump shows up. He's a fucking clown. It's a show. It's a shit show. But the problem is that while Hillary Clinton was doing her thing normally, these people didn't have to put money out because Trump's antics were on the news all the time.
Right.
It was free fucking advertising. There was
Right.
no fair and balance. All right. And so Hillary didn't realize that. She got sidebarred for two reasons. That James Comey to the day I die, son of a bitch. And the media, who painted her in a different way, but they wanted Trump. They gave Trump everything. They never called him out, and people bought it. And the
They
only
still
problem with
don't.
Clinton, they still, but the Clinton, well, there's a difference, and I'll get to it. But what Clinton's mistake was, she treated it like a regular campaign, and she should have pounded it to the end. Quick side note: if you see right now with Joe Biden, he's in every swing state. He's every swing state. He's in every swing state. He's doing rallies. He's out there. He saw what Clinton did wrong. Clinton, the last week of the election, should have been in Michigan, should have been in Arizona. Her people said, "Don't worry about it." No,
Right.
she should have been campaigning in those and showing up her support. That was a mistake, and they found out. They Unfortunately, we all paid for that bullshit. Now today, the thing about it, I just heard about it. Some of the things today, those people who are calling for the Biden to leave and all the bullshit we hear. The Times articles today was more crap. Washington Post, the senators are discussing. No, the senators aren't discussing. Those House members that discussed, I will guarantee you, Hakeem Jeffries said, "You shut up, or I'm going to give you an office in the bathroom."
Yeah.
And the other thing he's telling them, "We're going to support you now, but if you don't keep your mouth shut, come 2026, we will primary you." They will do it. Because
Oh, I
I'll tell
know.
you one thing: that leadership in the of the true leadership in the House doesn't fuck around. Jeffries doesn't fuck around. Pelosi never fucked around. So the point being is the difference between 16 and 20. Yeah, we see all this push, but what I'm seeing now is that a lot of us are pushing back and say, "No, we've done that.
Yeah.
So shut your fucking mouth, because we're not listening to you." And what media is have doing right now, they're getting upset because their tricks usually work, and they're not seeing it work. They keep pushing more and more. The White House press corps the other day asking about Biden's health when they couldn't ask him because of HIPAA, because of what the doctor saw. Those people were like, it was like crazed animals. I've never seen that. That's the Washington press corps that you used to admire. They were animals going after. One of those motherfuckers said, "Well, why doesn't Biden come out like the other guy did and arrest?" That's not his job. And the last time that fat fuck, yes, I said that fat fuck came out, what was that discussion? Bleach in the veins, Lysol.
Right.
See, they don't like it because right now, Joe Scarborough was saying that he had made a comment about Biden, his age and all that. He said he's been getting yelled at by his wife at home and everybody, because we know if you're talking shit about thinking about Biden's age and thing, you're full. You shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the NATO speech. I saw your thing on the NATO speech, so I
Right.
phoned up.
Well,
God
well,
damn, that was sharp.
that was very sharp. I just want to make an illustration about MSNBC. Of the ones I would watch, I would probably watch MSNBC, but I'm starting to get sick of that too. Let me give you a perfect
Mhm.
illustration of how they don't want to give pushback, that they don't want to tend to journalism. On MSNBC, they had this fill-in guy, and it was a reporter. His name was Mendy Hassan, and he was a
Andy Hessen,
bulldog.
yeah.
And he was a bulldog at pushing people to the limit. So he got popular and they gave him a weekend show. He was still doing what he does, but in the end, they fired the motherfucker and don't have him back on again. The best journalist you had on MSNBC, and you got rid of him because he was doing what you didn't want him to do. He was doing his job as a journalist, and you're more concerned with with making a buck. Um,
And
it's
it's but again, as the Midas touch. Look, my news sources are now are Midas touch. Um, a lot of other people on TikTok, because they seem to they look facts, and someone laid out a really good uh, tweet or whatever it is when I saw it. Look at every one of these media companies who they're run by. The majority are Trump supporters. They're all Trump donors. Fox News, we don't even talk about. And then you have Jeff Bezos that runs the Washington Post. I mean, and so there
Well,
you are.
you make a good point, and this may be good for the likes of me, you, and other people who do what we do. Um, Over the years, people said, "Well, whatever goes on the TV, that's just the way it is. Whatever happens in government, that's just the way it is." But they've woken up a sleeping giant. People
Hmm.
that are now at risk of losing their democracy, now they're awake and they're paying attention to every little thing, the government, the media, and all of this sort of thing. And they're going to have problems going beyond November 5th after the election, because they aren't going to have this mess to create this
Nope.
controversy. They aren't going to generate income. People are going to be angry with them, and they are going to look for alternate sources of information. And
People,
the
go ahead.
young people come here anyway first. They don't
Exactly.
watch those fucks.
They don't watch it. I mean, because our time of what news was is gone. I don't
Right,
know why they have the hour nightly news is on ABC and NBC and CBS anymore. They're useless, to be
yeah,
honest.
they are.
No one goes there. I remember um, as a kid, you got all your sports highlights on the weekends.
Right.
One guy, one that. You know, not anymore because it's instantaneous. YouTube. That's what technology has given us. The problem with technology wasn't controlled properly because when Reagan killed the Fairness and Reporting Act, what we didn't understand is that technology would come to this point where you can't check everything. If that law was still in place, you would check a lot of this shit, and there would be fairness on both sides. But
Are we in agreement with this thing with Joe Biden? As much as people want to make hay out of this thing, I honestly believe it's just yet another ploy by the Republicans
exactly.
to
hmm
explode this shit, and the media buys into it because they don't care, and the Democrats jump on board because they're panicky little bitches.
But what Democrats? See, that's the thing. I think the president said a good comment when he had called into Morning Joe, and he said, "I don't care about the elites.
Right.
I don't care because they don't. I've been out talking to people and they want me to run. Those are the voters." And he had a couple of people who were in from the Obama administration. And I'm going to say this straight up: the majority of the Obama administration people must hate Joe Biden. They must have hated him when he was there because Joe Biden always pushed Obama harder.
Right.
He wanted him to do things like when they passed the ACA, he wanted him, hey, man, go out there and push it. But his people didn't want to do that because they didn't want to alienate people. I'm going to say this straight up. Obama was a good president. He was surrounded by a bunch of pussies. I'll say that straight out. Biden's people are not. There are some younger people and they are shark. They are nasty. And
Well,
that's
that
what we're seeing now.
and that's a good point. It's a point I made in the TikToks. Joe Biden is getting pushed around by, they make it sound like it's a bunch of Democrats. It's like 2% of the Democratic caucus in the House. It's not a lot of people. And it's certainly none of which that really have any control or any power. Hakeem
Nope.
Jeffrey said, I'm with Joe. Chuck Schumer said, I'm with Joe. Those are the leadership. That's the thing we should fucking worry about. But I've been impressed with Joe, and he's proven even more so that he should be the candidate because he stood up, looked him in the eye, and said, "Fuck yourself. I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm the president. So shut your fucking mouth."
And the thing too is like what I hate about these creators have talked about Joe Biden. There was one I watched it, and he's kept laying out all the accomplishments of Joe Biden, and I kept waiting, and there was the but, and at that point I said, "You're a coward," and I took him off because there's something wrong with you. Because the thing that fascism, go back to the way fashion bubbles up. What is the one other than what we're seeing, the misinformation and all that? The one thing that bubbles up that like forces to the surface is a bad economy.
Right.
Think about the German economy at the time was a disaster, and and Hitler was able to race to do certain things to give people money and make them feel good, and you get to blame someone and they took their money and you'll go from there. But there's no suffering economy right now. And that's a hard thing for fashion to get by. The reason people are looking at Project 2025 and going, oh, fuck no, is because they don't see that as a solution to their problem.
Right.
They're,
Right.
because all their economic things in there are not a solution to what we're doing now. And that's what we're going to win in that situation
You
right
know,
now.
what's interesting, we keep hearing about these polls. And when we break it down, the polls have only adjusted 1 or 2%, you
Mhm.
know. So it's really not had a significant impact. You would think from what the media is saying and these Democrats are saying that are speaking against Joe, that it was a massive shift. It was not a massive shift. You know what's a bigger indication to me of what people think is?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is ultimately going to be a benefit from Joe Biden. You talked about the creators online, and there are some big creators online that said, Joe's got to go because I'm panicking. Joe's got to go. Those fuckers are getting hammered
Mm-hmm.
by people who don't believe it. Where are all these people that want Joe to go when these people are getting hammered? I ran across a smaller creator today and or yesterday, and he had like 17,000 followers, a reasonable amount, but small compared to Hawk or anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, we have to talk about this thing with Joe Biden. I saw him in the debate not able to defend himself. And so I went in his notes and his comments. I said, well, that's well and good. We'll see how you defend yourself when you get the heat that's fucking coming to you. You haven't been
Right.
around long enough. You have no idea how you're going to get hammered by Democrats that support Joe Biden.
And the one person made, I forgot where I heard this, when someone said that they, after the debate, they talked to like a family member who really isn't into politics. You watch the debate? Yeah. What did you think? He goes, he was the one, she goes, I thought Joe Biden did real good. She goes, he goes, you did? Yeah. Because he answered the questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi. I mean, he answered the questions. And the questions were set to him. And I hate hashing this motherfucker for the last 2 weeks, but he answered questions that were set up to be, since people are doing this and failing at it, what are you trying to solve it? Although he's already solved these situations. The CNN setting him up to fail. It was designed that way. But the thing about it now, let's look where we're at right now. Biden is out there doing his thing. I saw him at NATO. You had made a comment during your TikTok. How would Donald Trump do? Hey, you got to see. All you got to see is the UN speech he did in 2018, 2019. They laughed at him.
Yep.
The entire fucking General Assembly laughed at the President of the United States. That's embarrassing. You don't see, the thing about it, you don't have to speculate it. We've seen it.
Right.
We've seen his actions with other world leaders. They hate his ass. If I hear one more things, they respect him. No, they respect him. They hated him. He was a punk ass bitch. He couldn't talk to him. They talked to Joe Biden because Biden had talked to him as vice president, and now they know where he stands. And that NATO speech was exactly what a president should fucking say. That's
Well,
presidential behavior, dumbasses.
well, when I did the TikTok, I said, if you saw a feeble old man who couldn't put together a sentence, I'm going to have to disagree with you. What I saw is a strong leader, an articulate president of the United States discussing an important topic and having a good message. And if you didn't see this, you're fucking oblivious. I think Joe Biden stepping up to the Democrats or the media or the Republicans saying, I'm not going anywhere. That's what I want a president to do. I want him to
Yep.
be strong. I want him to be confident and tell people to fuck themselves if he needs to.
And the two presidents that the last time a president walked away because they couldn't take the heat, which still surprises me today, was Johnson, and that's
Yeah,
also because of the heat of the war. I
right.
get it, but
I
what
think he
happened?
I think he knew he was going to lose, so he just didn't want that embarrassment.
It was going to be. It still was close with
Yeah.
Nixon,
Yeah.
and if Johnson was there with the incumbency, he probably would have squeezed it out.
Yeah.
His problem was Nam and gotten out of hand, especially in '68. That was the worst year for the war
Right.
for Vietnam, and you and I know '68 was one of those years that you got to be. The only thing that was worse was 2020. What's next? Um,
I will say
so,
this, 1968 was a good year for me. I was 8 years old and I got a cool ass Stingray. Just saying.
oh, I had one. I had a Schwinn. Yeah, the Schwinn. Banana. Do you have a banana seat? I had a
Oh,
banana
hell yeah.
seat.
Sissy
Oh
bar,
yeah.
banana seed.
Oh yeah. The whole 9 yards. Even have the
Hell
rivets
yeah.
on the side. Okay. All the younger folk, go look it up on the Google. It's free, and you'll
Yeah.
see you want one too
Yeah,
when
you
we
do.
get done here. It's so there's the thing now we have to kind of look at. We're not going to get around this. The press is going to press this as long as they have. But I think it's kind of dead because voters are standing up and telling them to shut the fuck up. We don't care. When people are saying, I'll vote for a rotting ham sandwich over Trump, You know how this is going to go. But the thing that's scaring the piss out of Republicans, why by Trump hasn't come out. Oh, he came out in Miami today. Same fucking bullshit, same fucking speech, same lines. Dear God, Silence of the Lambs is a fucking movie, dude. It's a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, but what's scaring them is that what happened in England and what happened in France.
Oh yeah,
They're
that's a
already
trend.
yeah, and the far right here, the MAGA is saying they cheated over there. No, it doesn't work like that. They're saying that that was rigged. Let's put it this way: they know if voters like that, I mean, the Tories got crushed. They're not coming back for a decade. They're done. The last time I saw something like that was in California in the 90s. That's why the Republicans don't come back there.
Let me
And
ask you.
then
So, let me ask.
yes,
Let me
sir.
ask you one thing.
Mhm.
I have a theory. What we saw in England, what we saw in Iran, and
Oh yeah.
what we saw in France. I have a theory that what's going on over here with MAGA and Donald Trump was directly connected to what happened over there.
Oh
They're
yes.
seeing the shit show here, and they want to avoid anything conservative.
There's a good contributor on TikTok, LBJ. He does British politics. He does British stuff, but he gets a lot of MAGA calls. There's a lot of MAGA supporters in Britain. He
Oh, in
gets a lot of those
Canada
calls.
too.
Yeah, and but the one person was doing the the post election analysis of it, and their point was that the problem with the Tories, they thought if they adopted MAGA, the anti-immigrants, the austerity, the hate, that people would buy it. And all of a sudden it blew up in their face because people in England recognized it for the shit show they did in America. And they weren't buying it. Also, 14 years of austerity where people couldn't, basically all the things that that British had gotten used to, taken out. Oh yeah, tossing Britex or whatever, leaving the
Brexit.
union. Yeah, thank you. Leaving the union, which left your economy in shit because you can't grow. Why can't you grow? Because you can't get into a market, their neighbor's market. You dumbasses. They thought it was going to say no. You they even made the European Union made an exception for them, let them still keep the pound instead of going with the euro. But you closed off your market. And good luck. The biggest thing labor is already talking about, we had to figure out a way to grow a market because they don't have any. Because what happens instead of sending stuff across, now you got all the tariffs, or you got all the regulations.
Right.
It was ignorant, and people voted. Why did they vote for the exit? They voted because Niall Farage sold it as a way of getting rid of the dark people, a
Right.
way of getting rid of the immigrants. And all of a sudden, people realized that doesn't work. And they tried the same thing going at the gay and trans people at the end of that, and it blew up in their face. It's all coming to roost because all these things they're trying to do in Europe, they recognize is coming from us,
Right.
and they're not buying into it. And voters aren't. That's
Well,
for sure.
it's stupid. There's no reason for it. As you mentioned, Joe Biden spoke in front of NATO, and I'm sure a
Mhm.
lot of people were waiting for him to fail or falter, and he did not. He came off strong. He came off clear. He came off like a powerful leader. So you would think that would cause him to pass the test, but there is a press conference coming up Thursday, tomorrow, after hearing this. Thursday, he's going to have a press conference. And I have a feel, I believe that this is just them putting him to the test again. And I will say this, I hope Joe Biden does the press conference. He will be fine. It will be good. It will waylay all these claims that he can't finish a sentence. But after that's done, at some point, they've got to stand up and say, we can't continue trying to destroy Joe Biden. We've got a race to run here. We've got to expose all the bullshit of MAGA,
Mhm.
Project 2025, Roe v. Wade, all this stuff. We need to pound this into people's heads
Well,
so we win this race. But the Democrats are working against the fucking Democrats.
is it for the NATO press conference or is it a general press conference that he's having?
I think it's a general press conference.
Honestly, I wish they hadn't done that. I think Joe Biden should have said, "Fuck you, fuck you. I don't have to talk to you. I already made my statements.
Well,
I don't give a shit because the press is going to spin it any way they want anywhere.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't trust the Washington Press Corps. The
no,
Washington Press Corps and all those guys are not journalists, and they're going to turn it into a bullshit thing. It's a waste of his time. It's a waste of his time because it won't do anything. It won't change their minds. It really won't. And it won't change my mind. It won't change the majority of voters' minds.
no.
We're just going to say the press, you're a bunch of fucking assholes. And then those who want to change, well, look, he can't respond to the questions. It's a, it won't change anything. Like the debate didn't change anything. It's a waste of his time. I know he wants to do it and I can see why, but me, I would just turn around and said, this is my statement, take my statement. And after I win the election, we'll talk again. That would be
Well,
my strategy.
well, and that's my question. Joe's a pretty even-tempered guy, but he's clearly kind of pissed off right now. And I heard one representative say, "Well, I like Joe, and he could probably beat Donald Trump, but it's a bit of a risk given what's going on here." And I'm saying, risk? You think letting Joe run for president after being a successful president is more of a risk than picking a name out of a fucking hat and trying to
Yep.
build them up in 4 months? I don't know. I'm not much of a gambler, but that seems like much more of a risk.
And then basically, there's not even each one of these people who have made those suggestions. I never hear the words Kamala Harris come out of their mouths.
No.
Not one, because now I'm going to say this: Al Sharpton made a comment. And this was years ago, like during the late, when he was on MSNBC, usually during the Trump
Yeah.
presidency. He made a comment about far left, rich Democrats. He calls them latte liberals because they'll sit in their coffee shop and talk about what they want to do, but they won't do anything.
Right.
And when something turns that they don't like, that bothers their sensibilities, like talking about race or economic equality, they run from it.
Yeah.
They don't want it. They don't stand up for it. And what you're seeing with a lot of these Democrats that are coming up and not coming to Kamala Harris' side, if you're going to do it, you don't point to the person who's the vice president. They're latte liberals because Kamala Harris scares the fuck out of them. And I'm going to be straight. No offense to you. They're all white guys. They're all white guys who just sit there and go, and they look at Kamala Harris and it scares the hell out of them because, to be honest, when Biden wins the election, if he decides a year in that I'm tired and I'm done, meet the new president of the United States, their lives as they know it is over.
Well,
Because that's the worst fucking nightmare for them.
you don't have to qualify what you said earlier because I've often said,
Well, I'm teasing with you, so it's cool.
no, that's fine. I'm absolutely racist against old white guys. I'm tired of old fucking white guys. I'm tired of old white guys running the government. That needs to change. And I saw Kamala give a speech in, was it Nevada? Maybe it was Nevada. And she's impressive. I never thought Kamala was a bad candidate. She was in the running in 2020. I mean, obviously Biden won, but I have no problems with Kamala.
No,
the fact that she's a black woman is of no matter to me.
And the thing about it is that she is, it's a lot of stuff in there that you can't, that they won't deal with. I mean, Chip Roy's DEI president. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You reject from a bad cowboy movie. Look, that's the thing we're dealing with right now. What we're smelling or hearing is desperation.
Absolutely.
They're all desperate. The Republican National Committee sat down to have a platform. Now they haven't had a platform for years because their platform the last election was whatever Trump wants. That was their platform.
Yeah.
They're trying to write a platform, and they had one of their far right people in there who wanted to put in the platform a national abortion ban. We will work toward a national abortion ban. They pushed her out of the building,
right,
and told her to shut the fuck up. And she went there and said, "I don't understand. I came here to spend dollars. They promised me we'd do this." They're running scared because what happened with the Project 2025, these motherfuckers got confident. They said, "We got this. we're winning because they live in this little crystal ball, this little bubble.
Right.
And all of a sudden they started to say, "Hey, look what we got." I mean, the president of the Heritage Foundation sat with Michael Steele and the other black woman on the weekend and laid everything out, and they stabbed him. And they laid everything out, and he just stood there smiling, thinking he won. You don't win shit. And then the one black creator laid him out. People started to look. People started to read it. John Oliver did 20 minutes on it that scared the hell out of me. And then people started to realize the cat's out of the bag, and now they're stuck with something they thought they could sneak in.
Right.
People aren't buying this shit. And the Republican platform is a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
You know, the final point of their platform is we're going to make the economy better. How?
When
We're
have you
just going to do
done
better.
when have you done it in the past?
They haven't.
With George W. Bush? No, you didn't
No.
do it with Donald Trump. No, you
No.
didn't do it there. Every time they come in, they ruin the economy, and the Democrats have to
And it's right now,
ramp it up.
it's what we are is that for decades, the Democratic Party has been a steady policy. We believe in government to help people type of thing.
Right.
That does not, it is not pretty. It's work. It's grind.
Right.
What happened was that grind bores people. And then the Republicans were able to get behind everyone because the Democrats took their eye off the ball first at the local level, the state level, and then the federal level.
Right.
Now it got to the point they got so confident they couldn't win the whole thing because people they're not popular with most people. But now with Trump, they thought they could win it and they pushed it as far as they can. Now with this return, they pushed it even further, and people are not buying it
No.
because the media can't spin it. You can't spin what they're doing.
You can't spin
do it.
fascism. Try as you might.
Exactly.
You can't
And the
spin
thing about it,
fascism.
and the thing about it, your candidate, aside from being a convicted felon, a cheat, a business failure, is a fucking pedophile. I'm sorry. He's 69 times in the Epstein's logs asking for massages. 13-year-old girl has said that he did rape her. Yeah, I'm saying it. I'm saying it out loud because it's there. And the media doesn't say a goddamn thing about it because if they do that, he's finished.
Right. And if he's finished, there's no big fight and they don't make any money.
And the thing about the Republicans, I'll be honest, I don't know what the fear, if they jettisoned Trump and found someone who was middle of the road, not Nikki Haley, she pissed her things away. But let's say like a Larry Hogan and ran him. I don't know if he'd win, but it'd be a tougher fight.
Well,
because people would latch on to that who are independents and Republicans.
The problem with doing that, though, and why they're stuck with Donald Trump is because he's not a candidate. He's a cult leader. And the people that would vote for Donald Trump, if he was no longer a nominee, they would get mad and they just wouldn't vote. So now this affects the presidency and all the down ballots. That's why they're holding on so tightly to Donald Trump. They know he's going to lose, but they got to at least hope against hope that the down ballot stuff, they'll still be alive somehow.
But it's not going to happen.
No,
they're going to go. No, they're going to go the way the Tories did, and they can smell it. They can feel it. And that's why they're getting more desperate and the scream is louder. This Republican convention is going to be a fucking clown show. It's going to be horrid. They had, before I came on with you, I was looking at the speech in Miami where he's killing his people at 103 degrees heat in humidity in Florida. And to listen to these people is like, what happened? Who hurt you? I mean, because it's like I want to feel almost bad for him, but I can't. I look at him like, it's what happened to you? Where did you go? I mean, it's like it's no comment. I'm listening to him and going, it's amazing. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And they live for this.
Yeah, they do. They do. Well, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. We got a lot more shit to talk about.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thankful you're on the show.
I need 5 minutes on Larry. Just a request.
We will talk about Larry. And see, this is what I mean. people say, you have guests on a lot. I do, because they make the show sound smarter. Somebody like Will or some of the other folks we have on, they have a lot of
Oh,
interesting
oh,
perspectives, and they're smart people, and it makes me look good, and I'm happy to have them on.
you see, that's the radio in you talking, brother.
Yeah, maybe, maybe. All right, we will take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Gotcha.
We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have the good fortune of having Will with us. We're talking about all things Joe Biden and Republicans and all this bullshit. We're talking about Joe Biden and how Democrats and Republicans and the media want him to step aside. Now, Will, not surprisingly, we're on the same page as far as that goes. We think Joe should stick it out and be the tougher man and be the nominee. I'm thinking here, as much as the Republicans and the media want this to play Joe Biden badly or somehow discredit him, I think
Mhm.
the way Joe Biden's handling it, it may ultimately benefit him, because he's going to come off looking tough and pushing back and saying, fuck you.
Mhm.
And that's what people want. They want a strong leader. And this is an opportunity for him to show himself as a strong leader.
And he's doing it now,
He
and
is.
people are reacting to it. I mean, you look at his rallies that he's done after the debate. Everyone's got his back. Everyone's up there, especially people of color. Don't buy that bullshit that blacks and Latinos are for Trump. They aren't, except for the few who are weird. And I'll say it straight up. I don't care. Cubans in Miami, because they're lost.
Yeah.
No, that we see what it is. We see what's going on, and we see someone who's going to. The thing, what you have to look at as someone who's a salesman for a living is you don't sell things. That's the old days. That's
Right.
madman bullshit. You sell solutions.
Right.
My job is to talk to someone and find out what's your problem. Okay, this is what I think I can do for you. This is what it costs to solve it. But my idea is not, I'm not going to foist this on you for something that's not going to work, because that's not going to work. That's not the
Right.
way it works anymore. Um, what you're looking at right now is Donald Trump trying to sell something we all doesn't know it works. It's the car in the lot that looks ugly, that's it's not going to work, and they're trying to sell it as a premium product. Meanwhile, you got Biden showing how many cars he's going to sell, how he sells them, how they're going to work for you, and how you're going to afford them. See how that all works? Because you can sell people on that. Now, he's not going to tell you it's going to work out for everyone. That's the hardest thing with economies, is that it doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
And the hardest, and when people fall, a society should be there with a net. And from someone who's fallen into that net right after the Great Recession and saw it work for me, because I got to that point, and the one thing I will always remember, had to go, LA County, social services, had to apply for welfare, food stamps, no choice, lost the job. I'm in there. The place is exactly what you think. A lot of people in there young, everyone in there stuck together, bulletproof glass.
Right.
It's everything you could think of it. And so I got to it, and I gave the lady my paperwork, and I'm leaning my head against the glass, and she goes, "What's wrong?" And I go, "I never thought she'd get there. I mean, I worked and I never thought I'd get here." And the woman looked up at me and said, "Did you pay in the system?" "Yes." "Then it's your money, honey. Don't worry about it. Here, let me help you out to get through it." See, you see, that's what Americans really are,
Right.
not this bullshit we try to sell. Because at that moment, that woman looked at me and said, "You paid for this. This is yours. You need to get it." And the problem with Republicans and their economic thing is that if you get there, you deserve what you get, and let me piss on you some more.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what people are not buying anymore. That shit is old. That shit is over. This trickle down economics bullshit is over. Why? Because the economy is working not with that. The economy is better, not with rich getting everything at this
I've
point.
I've said this before, and it sounds kind of like a woo-woo esoteric type of thing, but I'm a firm believer in destiny. When you see something happening, you can see it trending a certain way, and when it starts trending a certain way, you realize you're coming to a big shift. And that's how I feel about the
Yeah,
conservative things. We've been dealing with this a long time, and they've been getting away with it a long time. But now that it's all been brought to the surface and people are understanding what's going on, they are getting pissed. They are speaking out. People like us doing this show gets more people informed of what's
right.
going on, and that's pissing them off. And I think that with the signals from Britain, from France, from Iran, I think from Mexico too, with
Oh yeah,
things
Mexico
going
for sure.
liberal,
Yeah.
things going more liberal, I think we're looking at a worldwide trend, not just in America.
I mean, my history teacher had a great history teacher, world history teacher, Miss Dismack, and she talked about an era right after the French Revolution called the Reichenbach era. That gave us Napoleon III, the Second French Empire. And she said that people went backwards because after the revolution, things weren't that good because they
Right.
didn't do it right.
Right.
So people thought if you go backwards, it'd get better. The Russians did it. That's why they ended up with Putin because things didn't work out. They didn't have an economic plan, and they ended up falling back to where they were before. In the United States, after Obama, and I said this to my wife just before the Obama administration ended, we're going to go right because that's what people just want to do that because they were tired of Obama, which I
Right.
didn't realize we were going to do this.
No.
That I didn't realize we are going to do this and fight for a life for our democracy.
Right.
Um, but right now, what's going on, I think a lot of it too is that people have been silent for a while. They're kind of hoping that it would go away. It's kind of like, you get a sore or a splinter in your hand and you hoping it'll go away because you don't want to go in there and dig it out because you don't want to do that immediate pain. Well, the American people have finally said, "Oh man, I've just had it. I'm going to go in there, clear it out, and yank it, and it's going to be painful. But afterwards, the relief is going to be amazing." And that's
Yeah.
what we're seeing right now, I think, electoral wise.
Well, and I think there's a lot of exhaustion out there too. I
Oh
mean,
God, yes.
the last 8 years, every day, some other shit show, some other scandal, some other way that the Republicans and Donald Trump had tried to wriggle out of their accountability. People are just tired of this bullshit. They don't want to keep talking and worrying about this. And I will tell you this, Will, what I've learned by doing TikToks and the podcast, I get emails and DMs from people. I get DMs from so many terrified people looking
Hmm.
for just one answer to make them feel better. I do what I can, but people are tired about being terrified. They are exhausted after going through all this bullshit for the last 8 years.
Yeah, the hardest thing about, I don't know if I mentioned this, but one of the best writers ever was Harlan Ellison. He talked about fear and horror. And the reason horror films are really popular because the real horror in your life is your everyday living.
Right.
Can you make your rent? Can you do this? Can you do that? Is someone going to come to your door and drag you into a camp after Trump becomes president? These are real fears to people. That's the one thing I think the visceral reaction to your last guest was that because I heard it, and what I heard was a detachment. Um,
You're talking
a
about
det-
Larry.
Larry, yeah, I'm sorry, apologize, guys. A detachment in your own world. You're not empathetic to everyone else, and that's the problem with the Republicans and people who stand aside. You don't see the other person. You don't empathize with them. Why do Republican governors reject federal money to help kids for lunches? Because it's the cruelty. They're not
Yeah.
empathetic. They think they're helping them out. It's insane. It's the old we're after don't drink water during practice because it makes you weak. It's not, it kills you is what it does. And that's the thing. They've been forcing this archaic bullshit down our face, but at the same time, everyone knows that it's not true because we can see it doesn't work.
Right.
We see the results of things when you do it differently. Um, I mean, the one thing I always hate is like, what sports is a good analogy for life to an extent. And I'm a big Dodger fan, and I like Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts is not the old school Billy Martin, Lou Piniella screaming at players. He's a man who tries to get the best out of people and shore them up. A couple months ago, they had a pitcher that came up in a Cincinnati game, and he was getting hammered. And Roberts came out to the mound, and he didn't yell at him. He hugged him and said, "It's going to be okay, dude. It's fine." Dude's been one of the better pitchers since then.
Right.
The point is, the views of Republicans and Trump is you have to be hard ass bullies.
Well, and they take
The
pride
rest
in
of
that.
us know that doesn't work.
No, that's absolutely right. They take pride in this. I'm a tough guy, so you got to vote for me. And I've talked to managers in business in general.
Mhm.
And what you said is exactly true. There are so many managers that all they don't know how to manage people.
No.
They know that I'm the boss, so whatever I say goes, and I'm going to kick their ass if they don't do what I want. Well, we're in a different day and age now. People react differently to different situations. And if you're a manager, your true job is to get the most out of your worker.
Yes.
And kicking everyone's ass isn't going to work because some people need different things. And the Republicans are so black and white about this. They say, we need to be tough. We need to be John Wayne. We need to be kicking ass. But society has changed and they're not buying that shit
No.
anymore.
And that goes back to, let's talk about the one thing that bugs the shit out of me more than anything. We may be, I might be a liberal, I guess. I never consider my liberal. I used to consider my moderate till they changed that because I believe in a strong defense, strong military. I
Right.
think that's important. People complain about the cost. Yeah, well, a lot of people just, some people who just, are going to take advantage of it. But the military changed to the point that, I remember women first came into the military and pilots, that problem. But then they became solid because they became part of the military. You couldn't get rid of them.
Right.
In the desert, first Desert Storm, women were only supply, but they were on the combat lines. And so all of a sudden, women integrated into the military.
Right.
The military has adapted since Vietnam into a unit-driven system where everyone can work together as one unit. You're not black, white, or whatever. You're not gay. You're not a sexist. You are a member of the United States military. You're a Marine. You're an Army man. You're a soldier. You're a sailor, and that type of military is successful. That's why until Trump took out the Marines in northern Syria, that they didn't, no one, they didn't mess with them. They didn't. I mean, because it only took 1,000 Marines to keep them at bay. Because
Right.
our American soldiers are efficient. American soldiers are smart. They work on their own, and the equipment is far to none. Why are the Ukrainians giving the Russians an ass kicking little by little? Because they were trained by Americans in small unit tactics.
Right.
They have people on the ground to make decisions right away, and Russians do not. The Russians are just throwing bodies at them. They're kidnapping people from other countries and throwing bodies. That's desperate. And you think the only thing I will say, real quick side note on that, if you think it's bad now from Russian bots, now that Britain and France have become what they are, Putin knows he's fucked.
Yeah.
He's totally fucked. Because if he doesn't get Trump, he's totally fucked. And that's what
Well,
you're going to see more.
well, Putin's in kind of the same situation as Donald Trump. Donald Trump's only saving grace is if he wins the presidency. Otherwise, motherfucker's going to jail. Now, Vladimir Putin's only saving grace is if Donald Trump gets to be elected president and he can somehow dissemble or dismantle NATO. Because NATO is the thing that's fucking over Vladimir Putin right now. And that's why I was so glad to see Joe do what he did.
Mhm.
He's talking about NATO, supporting NATO. And what people have to remember is Donald Trump wants to get rid of NATO. He wants to get rid of NATO because Putin wants to get rid of NATO. because NATO is there to save countries and save people and push back against murderous dictators.
Hmm.
Vladimir
And
Putin is a murderous dictator, and he's Donald Trump's buddy. So this is
but
what Donald Trump's plan is for our world
and then
culture.
tie in the Republicans' view of the U.S. military, how
Right.
they say it's woke, and then tie in the plans for the Veterans Department with 2025 and
Yeah.
the military. They're going to cut the budget. And so this is all tied in to weaken the United States military because these people are insane. It's I can't describe it anymore. The American and I'm going to say this: I never served. I'll be honest, but I respect everyone who does, and I've seen what they can do. And the thing about it is, like, if Putin really wanted to push it, he would last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The only reason we have to stay back because yeah, he does have nuclear weapons and he's crazy enough to use them if he's pushed to the wall. But on a straight up fight, oh no, forget it. I mean, honestly, we can set the finish in the Swedes down on him and just give him air cover and it'd be over in
Well,
15 in
let's be
days.
perfectly honest. We've always thought the Russian was this powerful military, and all they really have are these alleged, and I say alleged, nuclear weapons because they don't have any money. The economy's shot. They don't have
Hmm.
people happy with the situation. They don't have enough bodies or technology to fight a regular war. And I've heard talks that because they don't have any money and because they're just bullies, they maybe haven't kept up with maintenance on these nuclear
Oh,
weapons.
that's scary because
Yeah,
that's an accident waiting to happen
right,
somewhere in the middle of Russia and they can blame us for it. The bottom line is that instead of taking advantage of it, we have a political party that thinks that's the best thing since sliced bread,
right.
and it's scary. And that was the party that tear down the wall, et cetera, that have totally turned into. It's nothing worse than watching a Trump supporter say that Putin is better than Biden.
Yeah,
That is the
it's
most.
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And we've been talking in the last hour a lot of shit, and we get it. But I think the best thing is that to look at it overall from everyone's perspective now. I think the one thing that your last interview Larry did was that he kind of was in this kind of weird bubble showing why it doesn't work and why you shouldn't vote, why he won't vote, and then why it doesn't work. But the rest of us out here are going, no, we know what happens when we vote. We change things. When
Right,
we vote in mass, I mean, again, purple shirt. I live in Georgia. They change things because people came out and voted the way they wanted, knowing that they voted for the best interests. And yes, Mississippi and Alabama and Texas to an extent is lost. Oh, by the way, Texas, how's that going with the flood and your governors in Asia?
yeah,
And the president can't get federal funds to you because they can't find the governor, and the lieutenant governor refuses to pick up a phone from the president of the United States to help your people.
right.
How did that work for you?
Yeah,
Point being, quit voting against your goddamn interests, people. These people don't give a fuck about you. They only care about themselves. Now, are politicians perfect? No. But I'll take a politician who's going to grind. I take a politician who has my most of my ideas in mind, what's good for us, than these people who spout platitudes about nothing. And Mitch McConnell, who's just a aging piece of crap who did more to ruin the United States than any man in American history. And I'll
absolutely.
stand by that.
Well, absolutely.
So,
And the thing about it is what we were talking about before. In our history, there's always been a shift in attitudes and culture. I mean, I talk about the 60s and 70s, and I try to explain to people in this that weren't there that you have to understand in the 60s and 70s, racism was accepted. You weren't
it
looked
was,
at badly if you're a white guy and racist. You
mhm.
weren't called out if you said the N word or made some reference to Hispanic people. I mean, it was just accepted.
Institutionalized. It was part of the world.
But over time, we were able to change that opinion for the vast majority. And the same goes for women. There was a time when women couldn't have a credit card, didn't
Hmm.
drive a car, didn't work, couldn't vote, or whatever the hell they couldn't do. But over time, things progress and things change. And I think we're kind of at that pivot point with regards to politics and this tough guy Republican attitude. We've got younger people coming in, they don't think like that. And I think you're absolutely right. The Republicans are absolutely in desperation mode because they know the end is near.
I mean, Josh Hawley today
What
just
a
said,
joke.
yeah, he just said, "Am I Christian? Yeah, I'm a Christian nationalist." He has no fucking idea what he just said
No,
because he
no.
thinks that's a good thing. They are in such a little bubble. And by the way, dude, I hope your legs are running quick. God, what a little. Oh man.
Pussy.
Oh God. Anyway, the point being is that he said it out loud like it was a good thing. Yeah, I know Missouri's kind of fucked up. I mean, they put in these super majorities thinking it was a good thing, but you don't say that without thinking that it's a good thing. They live in this right wing bubble. Yeah, I
Right.
know people will say, "Well, you live in your left wing," but no, I don't. I live in reality. My reality is I see what's happening for me, what's happening for my fellow Americans, and what I see is a group of people trying to stop it. Because as one professor was talking about on a TED talk, the reason you've seen a rise of fascism is when one group starts seeing their power slip away that they've had forever.
Right.
And what you have is, to an extent, white men realizing that they're now becoming the minority and everyone else is not. Women, people of color. Oh, yeah, and everyone's mixed races. And then you have a younger group of generations who grew up with all these people, gays, blacks, whites,
No.
Hispanics, mixed people. They all lived, they get along together to an extent. Yeah, we fight. But the thing about it is like the cookout. Everyone makes jokes about the cookout, right? You get invited to cookout. But you know what? If you get everyone together on a Sunday together, white, black, Hispanic, Oriental, and you have a cookout. Everyone's together and they're having a good time and they're vibing, and everyone brings their food that's good to precious to them. Everyone gets along. Everyone takes everything from each other, and we become Americans. We don't become this, that, and that. We become Americans, and that's the thing about the United States that no one understands. For all our faults, all our things that come in, when the bottom line comes down and we're together away from the bullshit, we're Americans.
Right.
We're all Americans together in the same boat.
Well, I tell you what, I've told the story before and it's a long story, but I won't go into that. But my wife and I had the good fortune of going to a black family's cookout. We were the only white people there.
Hmm.
Best fucking cookout I've ever had. These people were wonderful. They were having fun. They had the music and the food was fucking amazing. And it had nobody cared that we happened to be white. We were treated very well. And it wasn't even an issue. It was a graduation party.
Hmm.
They loved their granddaughters and their niece, and we knew her as a friend of the neighbor. We loved her too. It didn't fucking make a difference. We weren't there based on our color. We were there based on honoring and celebrating this little girl.
And the best thing about it is like when when you get a chance to get into other cultures, other food and everything, it's an uplifting experience. The
Oh
hardest
man.
thing, the worst thing for people is the idea that you don't want to accept others and other cultures and accept an issue. It's so sad. And that goes about those who try to block you from doing it because it's
Well,
not right. Accept it all.
Well, when we go down to Savannah, my wife and I make a concerted effort to try things that we don't know about up here
Hmm.
in the northern part of the country. I mean, we fucking love hush puppies. We, I kept hearing about shrimp and grits. I don't even know what that shit is. I said, I'm ordering it. We went to the pink house and I ordered
Uh,
shrimp and grits. Fucking awesome. I had no
yep.
idea. You've got to be open-minded enough to experience other people's culture because you'll be truly amazed. I mean, the Hispanic folks, um, uh, that's a entirely different culture, and it's
Oh no.
pretty amazing when you have a friend and you become part of, or at least be able to witness that culture. It's truly amazing.
I mean, living here in Georgia, the problem is that I haven't found the Mexican food I had as in Southern California. Um, because those are memories I had, and I always liked introducing friends who are white to it because my mom would feed everybody,
Yeah.
and if there was manure in the pot, you got it. But I never forget that when I brought my wife home the first time, that's my girlfriend, and my mom and my sister passed away, God rest her soul, and my mom were making tamales. They had a big old blue pot of masa. There was meat on the side. They had the corn husk, and they were making them. And my dad was in the bedroom, and my mom told my wife, "Come here and sit down. Come with us." My wife looked at me. I said, "You're on your own, honey." And I went in with my dad to watch football, and they made tamales, and my mom picked her brain. And so that's what it is. See, that's what life. That's the way America is.
Yeah.
It's not this segregated dystopian world that they want us to be. It's not perfect. It's not. I mean, I will never say that. And we have a long way to go, but we got there for a while. We backslipped, and now we're at the point where we can get even further on November 5th. Because that's the thing. We can end all this bullshit on November 5th. End it all.
I have a theory on this, and you would be better to answer this than me just spouting it. But people always talked about racism. As I said, in the 60s and 70s, it was pretty much accepted and it was pretty rampant. And then for a period of time, it seemed like racism got better. But when I talk to people of color, I realized very quickly racism never got better. It never got worse than it was, but it never got better. It's just that these people hid under their rocks
Exactly.
up until the time Donald Trump made it
Mm-hmm.
okay to pop their heads out and say whatever the fuck they want. Is that true? Do you think the racism
Yeah, it did. I
hasn't
mean,
changed much?
oh, that is a good question. Living like being now in Georgia from Southern California, um, I didn't run across it as much here in Georgia that I thought I would. My kids ran across it when they were going to high school, but literally it was from blacks against them than from whites.
Really?
It was kind of a weird thing, but that was I think a competition bullshit set up. Um, living from the 60s and 70s, it was always there. You knew it. People weren't, but when you get into the 80s and 90s, they became more cautious because it cost you to do it.
Right.
Now, you still had the police brutality. You still have the incidents before video of how many people died on stops. That's still there. That still was there until the Rodney King and George Floyd incidents that kind of brought it to fruition. But now that's back with the promise of immunity for cops from Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yeah, it's there. It's always going to be there. I'm sorry.
I mean,
It's the nature of humanity.
it is. I think people are prejudiced in general. Everybody's prejudiced,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be difference in color, difference in religion, difference in appearance. This guy's a fat guy. This guy is a skinny guy. The skinny guy and the fat guy aren't going to see eye to eye.
All you gotta do is read your damn comments, and whenever you make point, I mean, it's like I mean, I've been called so many things so many times. I'm like, I don't even respond. I just block them because obviously
Yeah.
you have nothing to say to me other than go 3-year-old on me. So
Well, and that's what I told Larry. I said, Larry, you're going to come on this show and you're going to do what you do, and that's fine. I had a good time busting balls with you and stuff like that. I don't get that opportunity too often, so I enjoyed it. But you're going to get a beating in the comments, and I don't think
yeah.
I don't think he really thought he would. And I said, but don't worry about it. Be doing what I do on TikTok, looking the way I look, I get some of the most horrific comments. I don't bring them
Oh
up because
God.
I don't cry about them. I don't care. I don't really care. I get a lot of accolades too, and I don't try to expound on those either. You take it for what it's worth. But if you're
Yeah.
going to stand up and say something, you're going to get your ass kicked, and
I
it
mean,
doesn't really have an impact unless you let it.
I would give someone more clever. I had one person said, have you checked your A1C lately? And I laughed at that one and said, hey, I'll give you that one. That was good. That one was good. Yeah, I mean, but the point is like but what are you if you have a stand? What is your there's a line in Hamilton, if you don't know what you stand for, what would you die for?
Right.
Okay. And the point is, what I'm going to say to the end, and I'm 62 years old, my knees hurt, I can barely walk half the time because I did a lot of time physical labor. Believe it or not, people, I did a lot of stuff. When that Heritage Foundation president said it'll be okay, and as long as the left, it'll be blood as long as the left lets it so. I'm going to be clear. If in the God forbid, God forsaken thing that Trump does win, I will be blunt. They think they're going to roll over everyone. No, it will be a civil war. Because if you think you're going to roll through South Central LA or show up in the South Side of Chicago or into parts of Atlanta or parts of Philadelphia and think you're going to go after people, it's going to be ugly. You don't get it. And a
You know,
lot of us are ready to die because I'll tell you one thing. If it comes to that, I'd rather die on my feet fighting for what I believe in and for my safety than accept that.
you know
And
that
that's what's going to happen.
that's the thing I've said. I don't know that people agree with me or understand what I'm saying. They will say that if Donald Trump doesn't win, there's going to be a civil war, and I
No, they
just
won't.
disregard that because they've shown that they're pussies and they aren't coming out to the trials and to the convictions and all
I
that
mean,
stuff.
there
They're
might
going
there
to
might be some terrorist acts, domestic
right.
terrorist acts, but they're not going to be what you saw on January 6th. Period.
I think the real concern about violence and people, you're starting to talk about it here. If by some chance Donald Trump wins, and I don't think there's any chance of that happening, but if Donald Trump wins, there's so much fear and terror of Donald
Hmm.
Trump getting in power and doing what they want to do with Project 2025 that there are people frightened enough about the future of this country and the future of their kids, they may act out.
And
I
let's
would
let's
you better
yeah,
get
they
a
will.
fucking brick wall around Donald Trump if he gets elected because there's going to be people just crazed.
And let's honestly think about it. If that does happen, and their transition is coming up, it'll be until January 20th. The transition. Honestly, how many people do you think in the military, honestly, soldiers, are going to take those orders and do them? Really, honestly, ask yourself that. Because think about it. Because you're asking soldiers to do that, the National Guard to do that. National Guard's different because that's state by state. But talk about the general military. Those people were trained differently. And I don't see that if he points a finger and says, "Yeah," I cannot see if some troops just leave and maybe pledge fealty to a governor. I could see it. That's how crazy they could be. I'm not advocating. I don't want that. I don't want my country to fall fucking apart. But I find it hard to believe that us people, the majority, are going to say, "Yeah, go ahead, go fuck us." I find that hard to believe in my heart of hearts that
This
we
this,
won't go without a fight.
this news story just came up, and I'm anxious to get your reaction to it. We were talking about Joe Biden and how Democrats are telling him to step aside. He's got to do it so Donald Trump doesn't win. This comes from a Democratic Colorado senator, Michael Bennet. He became the first Senate Democrat to go public with his concerns about Joe Biden yesterday, saying that he doesn't believe the president can beat Donald Trump in November. But listen to this. He says Donald Trump is on track, I think, to win this election and maybe win it by a landslide. Now, here's a Democratic senator who I hate as much as any fucking Trump-la-fuck because he doesn't know what he's talking about and he's working contrary to what the Democrats should be doing. This pisses me off.
I mean, where's he getting this information from? What?
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
because there's no way. Even the polls are not saying that,
no,
dude. I mean, and I don't know because a lot of those senators, a lot of those Democrats, especially in those areas, aren't really Democrats.
no.
They're kind of halfway in. They just have to do that. But for him to say that, who do you want, homeboy? What's your solution? See, that's the thing with these people. What's your solution? New York Times, he has to leave. Well, what's your solution? Well, the Democrats figure it out. What's your solution, Senator? And I'll tell you one thing, Senator, the people in Colorado are going to remember that. They are going to remember that. And the
Yeah.
one thing I worry about these people talking like that, they could lose their seats, which means we could lose some part of Congress
Right.
because they're idiots.
I don't
But
understand what's in it for them, though. Why would a Democrat do this, especially when it's not the upper level Democrat? It's not the leadership. It's these little
no,
people that we've never heard of before. What do they hope to gain by doing this? Are they
I
so terrified, or do they
no.
think there's something in it for them?
Well, I think you said it. We never heard from them.
Right.
When you ever heard Michael Bennett name mentioned on the Senate floor?
True.
I mean, I can say the words Warnock and Ossoff, and you'll know my senators before I know who he is.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, so the point is, that's the only reason I think because they know people the words will come out and they'll get their 15 minutes of fame. In the end, I think Chuck Schumer would be on the phone to him and saying, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Because Schumer doesn't put up with that. I knew Hakeem Jeffries has been on the phone with some people leaning on their asses.
Yeah.
This is just someone who needs some kind of attention. And so
Medication.
Medicaid, well, attention, and for him to say that, but he's in Colorado.
Yeah.
He doesn't see the world. But the point is, it's not surprising, and it gives the press a whole bunch of stories to write about the senator saying that Trump's going to win Democratic senator. I don't care.
Well, and
He ain't going to run it.
you brought up Larry and his situation. Um, And I think you make a good point. What Larry didn't do, what these people aren't doing, they're saying,
Mhm.
I'm not voting for Joe Biden, but I don't like Donald Trump. All they're doing is causing more confusion and have no solution to the problem. And
No,
we have a big problem. And if you can't come up with a solution to the problem, shut the fuck up.
and the thing about the senator, I mean, there's no landslide here. I
No,
don't see any. There's no landslide. I mean, the numbers, the math don't lie, dude. The president got 81 million votes the last time.
yeah,
He won the swing states. He's close to winning all the swing states already. I mean, again, Georgia, 1 fucking percentage point. That's insane. Think on it. And that's what the outlier polls. So what that was someone who basically shock jocked us.
yeah.
Hey, I can, and this is my opinion. Your opinion is shit. And if you're going to talk shit, then become an independent or give up your seat and let someone else take it because you're an asshole.
Well, I have problems with polls, as you know. They were
Mhm.
wrong in 16, 20, 22. They were really wrong in France. And now they're saying what
Oh
they're
yeah, it
saying
was
about,
great.
well, now they're saying what they were saying about 2024. But do
Mhm.
we see that in the people? What we see is people getting angry and going
Right.
after people that say Joe should step aside.
Exactly.
That doesn't suggest what the polls are telling us.
Nope.
That suggests what the people are telling us.
The
And
voters.
I take that to heart more than any
And
of
the
the
reason
fucking
I bring
polls.
up the poll is that that's an outlier poll with people that picks up a phone and in a state that's supposed to be stone cold red, and he's still within 1 percentage point with a poll. What's the reality? See, that's to scare you. What's the reality at
Yeah.
that point? And the reality is not good for him. I don't know what Senator Bennett wants to do. I think he wants his 15 minutes of fame. I think he's pissed because maybe Charles Schumer leaned on him a little and he wants to be contrary. But that statement means shit. That statement is an outlier and he's going to get crushed. He knows he's going to get crushed.
Well,
And
that's my question is, so now these guys come out against Joe Biden. Joe Biden says, fuck yourself, runs and wins. Now what happens to these people who went against their party and went against their president? It can't be good for them.
if he's up for election in 26, if he's not on the ballot now, if he's up in election, his cycle is 26. We they will primary him. If Joe's not around, Kamala Harris with that. Trust me, there will be and Hakeem Jeffries. There will be remembrance of these people because
Yeah.
come 26, they will remind you of that. And the other thing, I think President Biden made a very good point when he was talking again to Morning Joe. If you want to do it, go to the convention and challenge me. Step it up. If you want to challenge me, I'm here. Bring it on. And they don't. They just talk this shit without a solution. There is the only solution is, and to use a term from a real nice set of black ladies called Frangela, who are on Lawrence Donald's show a lot and Stephanie Miller's show. He goes, "We're gonna." They asked him about it. She goes, "We're gonna black mama this. What's for dinner? Biden. What's in the refrigerator? Biden. You have Biden for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. That's all you're going to get because there's nothing else.
Right.
It's Biden. Because anything else, it's a fantasy. It's not going to work. You can't do it. Now get with the program or get the fuck out of the way."
You know, that's
Simple as that.
That's the funny thing is what I'm hearing, and I don't know any details or data on this, but I'm hearing this happening to Joe has really riled up the community of
pissed.
people of color. I mean,
They're
it's
pissed.
all the thing you say, well, black people are going to vote for Trump, Hispanics are going to vote for Trump. This has really pissed off the people of color, and they are backing Joe pretty strongly.
Because they voted for him. And they know that if you're telling them, first of all, you're insulting them and saying, well, Joe should step aside and Kamala Harris should take his place. Trust me, everyone would be behind that if he decided to do that.
Yeah.
No, they're not saying that. They say Joe should step aside and we should look for someone else over here. Ignore the black lady in the power position,
Right.
whose name is on the ticket.
Right.
They ignore that. So we see that for what it is. Also, they voted for him, and it's in essence, this change or trying to get rid of Biden is telling us our votes don't matter. You don't tell a black person or Hispanic your votes don't matter, especially black folk, because they fought for those. They died for them. People died for those votes. You don't get it. That's the thing. These folk don't get it. These are our rights. You can't take them. And you keep trying to, and that's another thing. Supreme Court keeps trying to take rights. They keep doing this. And people are said no. And you can't do that. That goes back to the discussion. That's why if Trump does win, and it won't be by a landslide, motherfucker, it'd be like one of those, like 2016, people are not going to go quietly into that night. It would literally be that movie Civil War. Literally would be that movie.
I think the realistic likelihood is it's more likely that Joe Biden will win by a landslide. In spite of what the polls say, they've got so much, Republicans have destroyed themselves with Roe v. Wade, with the Supreme Court decision, with Project 2025. How does anybody win any fucking race when you support that shit?
And then
it just doesn't happen.
And he see, again, going back to Senator, dude, do you talk to women? Women
they don't care about women.
Women are, see, that's the thing. They don't get it. Women are pissed. And then you got people, country would be better, women didn't vote. Oh, look up, and everyone, and I do this all the time to y'all folk, look up the women's suffrage movement.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
Yeah.
They put those women in jail. They tortured them. They murdered them. These women fought literally to death for women's suffrage. They died for it, for their votes. Those people in charge, those cops, they treated those women badly. It was horrid. So understand this. You're coming for our rights. You're coming for our votes. And you're telling us to lay down and bend over? Not going to work. Not going to work. And that's the point. That senator just wants his 15 minutes of fame. Take it, motherfucker. Come 2026, I'll guarantee you you're out your office, primaried.
Yeah.
Because it's going to change. And two, it's not reality. And the reality is this is a majority of Americans who have reached a point of no return.
Yeah.
And I mean in the sense that we win or we lose. If we lose, if you behave, we'll deal with it. If you do what you're going to do, we're not. And I think they're going to find out real quick. Also, when Biden does win, and you guys think you're going to march to the Capitol, remember this: who's in charge of the military now?
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, you dumbasses. That's what I keep hearing them. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, honestly, it's going to be a drone just standing in front of them and go, really? To use a term from Justified, think it through, because that's the thing. You can't. This is all fantasy for them. It's a
Yeah.
fantasy that
It's
they've lived for all these
cosplay.
years. Cosplay, and from a family of nerds, me and everyone who do cosplay all the time. Yeah, but that's just a game, and you enjoy it. But most of the characters they represent are good
Yeah.
and justice. What you represent is that all those people you admire. Let's talk about the Punisher or Rambo. Do you know they stood for justice, right? To
Right.
doing the right thing, and that they would stand in front of you and shoot your ass for not to protect the country. You guys don't get it.
Yeah.
You don't.
No,
So
it's absolutely.
it's a scary prospect that if Trump wins and the Republicans get any kind of power, that they push it, that would be the end of our country, not democracy, but the country itself.
Yeah.
I really think that, because we're not going to go quietly into that night. Period. End discussion.
And absolutely, I think everybody is feeling this, and that's why I think we're more likely to see a landslide, something we've never seen before for Joe Biden.
And that senator from Colorado. It'll be on the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Atlantic, MSNBC, CNN. He'll get they'll call him on the Sunday shows. He's going to have a whole weekend to himself to be an asshole. I'm not listening to him. Most of the people aren't going to listen to him. We're all going to tell you, dude, just go back to Colorado and do whatever you do. We'll come back to you later. We have an election to win, and we're going to win. And
Yeah.
we're going to make this country better than what it is right
D-
now.
Without question. Well, Will, I want to thank you for coming on. We're going to have to wrap
Mm.
things up. We've gone to the point where we have to come to the end. Will, thank you
Yeah,
for
I
coming on.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you raising your hand and sending me an email and said I got to get on. You seemed kind of irritated by some things, and
Well,
like
the only irritation is that we don't to sit there and say to give up, to just say it is what it is type of thing. It's not, and because we're all better than that. And the people I speak to and the people I see, we're ready to do what needs to be done. And I think that's going to be a big surprise for a lot of people. I'm proud. I'm going to say this straight up, and maybe it's passe to say it sometimes, but I'm proud to be an American. And I don't see it as a country song. I mean, honestly,
yeah.
I'm proud of the flag. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my country. I'm proud of what we stand for and what we've done in the world. We can be better at it, and we will be come November.
When we talk about Roe v. Wade and we talk about women's rights and that sort of thing, I think people have forgotten what happened right after Donald Trump was elected.
Mm-hmm.
Women went to the streets in mass.
Yep.
Now, it wasn't violent, but they were showing their
not my president
to this situation. If you think it's gotten better, and it's not going to be worse in November, if Donald Trump should win, it's going to get downright ugly, because women are going to feel they've lost everything, and people who support women are going to feel the same way. You can't marginalize 75% of this country and expect to win an election.
No. And that's why the senator needs to actually get remedial math and understand 2 + 2 is not 5.
Yeah,
Sir.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
4.
Exactly.
Right, I
Well,
appreciate the time. And again, if you ever want to, my stuff is on Binder 38 US on TikTok. I'll talk shit all the time. But you guys take care of yourself. Always remember, this country is worth it.
absolutely.
This country is worth it.
Absolutely. That's what we're fighting for. So, Will, thank you very much. And those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.